Welcome everyone. We are about to start IRL Season 3 preseason here. We're about to get everything all set up and going here. The race about to start. Seeing some strong names recent times actually. And hopefully we can actually figure out how well the grid's gonna hold compared to the people we see around them on track. I think when we go into Spain, we have to understand that this is really a race that it's going to take a lot of effort. We're going to see a lot of action, most of all, and we're going to see probably more than less a majority of drivers who might struggle more over others, and that could really spell the whole picture of, hey, you know, they might lose a seat or they might not, and I think that's what's telling here. Anyways, though, we are about to start. You can see the beautiful Spain track right here. As I get it all situated, all loaded out. Also getting the stream all set out for every racer we have in our Discord. And if you actually haven't joined, we would recommend it. It's in the Twitch stream. It's in the name. It's a really nice track overall that I think that many people, maybe, you know, they want to get their races in. You know, tier 2 is the perfect spot for that. If you're interested in the league, I think that's a great spot to throw yourself in. Currently focused on getting the announcement out for our Twitch stream. All the tier 1 drivers who maybe want to watch while they're racing. I wouldn't recommend it, but you know, some people like to do it. You know, gotta get that all prepared, all set up for them, of course. But what's important right now is that you can actually see a few cars out there, which seems to be TTV already getting the grid started out. TTV sent by God, who was the tier 2 racer, has requested access for this race going in, and he seemed like he could carry that pace, but he seemed like he was struggling for sure when we were watching him in tier 2, with a few unfortunate wrecks and situations that overall I think didn't help him. Definitely ruined his confidence, I would say. But it's not how you want to look at that. I think if you look at how tier 2 applied that pressure on you, you don't want that kind of pressure to creep back on you, you know? It's especially in tier 1. You make a mistake, it's going to stick with you. You're going to constantly be reminded of, hey, I made this error and it's going to be sticking with me, but that's not always the case. What you do see, though, is 17 drivers out of the predicted 20. We have a few tier 2 drivers who actually still can make a name for themselves, including Dan, who picks out the beautiful Williams. That car looks wonderful. Speaking of Williams, they have Striker, the previous driver, I believe, for Kick Sauber, is now in the Williams seat. And speaking of some changes, U6, the Haas reserve driver, makes a name for himself in the Aston seats today, alongside with JDB, a previous 2-season driver throughout the grid, and someone who's been looked at with a little bit of skepticism as of recent times of if he's worthy of that seat. But speaking of worthy seats and not, Haas have figured out they want to completely switch up their lineup. They went pretty hard on it. They got TTV, who was departed from the VCarb family, right into a wonderful seat with the Haas team, and Teddy Vaughan, the McLaren reserve, who was initially almost paired up with Renato after the departure of Souls, who actually went back to VCarb, and you can see him right there in the P4 in the pits. He makes his return back to the Red Bull family. The first lap on the board is a 112. U6, though, finding himself with a 113. Everyone else behind, ready to set the times down, but the Haas driver of Teddy, he's absolutely killing it. That's a wonderful time to set on the board, and definitely something that will strike fear into a few people, like Renato. You know, Renato, who came into the season looking to be the challenger for the championship for sure. This is something I think is a little astonishing. I don't know if he made a mistake. I don't know if this is just how he's taking the approach first go. But it's definitely interesting to see how much time Renato's losing out to Teddy here. Could be an interesting mix right here in the situations we have at the seams, but Souls has left the session. This is not what you want to see. I think that's not... Speaking of not what you want to see, the McLaren slams into the billiard. Definitely a little problematic there, and a little problematic up here as you see Alpine staying what seemed to be like almost the racing line, in a sense, trying to get out of the way of the other racers. I don't really know what's going on by God there, TTV God, but definitely not what you want to see. More traffic up ahead for the McLaren, who's deciding to go into the pits. He's just breaking it back in. Golden Sniper, though, with the Kicksauber family, he's watching himself absolutely going back into the pits with a 113.9. Not the best at times, but I think you don't want to be like TTV right here, who finds himself on the gravel and the grass. Just terrible situation overall. He gets out of the way in time, not impeding anyone's laps, keeping it clean, but he is on the medium tire compound, so you don't want to apply too much pressure. Obviously, you're going to make mistakes, but with the mediums and the softs, you don't want to put wear on the mediums, I would say, especially if you know this race is going to be a short example of what you're going to see in the real season. These are 25%. The main race seasons are going to be 50%. It's definitely going to be odd if you want to do practice on the medium tires, maybe if you were in the actual race season, like not in preseason. I think preseason you could get away with the medium compounds, but it's not something you want to just rely on all the time as a way to test your limits and such, especially when you had so much time beforehand every weekend. I think that could really affect you. It could throw you off, it could throw you for a loop. And throwing you for a loop right now is Drizzo, who's finding himself really good ahead of his teammate, but actually TTV sent by God sends him up one more by actually getting right next alongside him, but Scorzy, who finds himself right into P2, in fact, nearly grabbing P1, and let's get a little detail on the what is it, the gap right there. That is insane. Right there, you can see the gap from Scorzy and Teddy right there. It is way closer than the Haas would probably want, but it's still showing you how close this competition really is. The Ferrari drivers of Hash Brown, the last season winner, actually, the Season 2 champion, said he would be arriving a little late. This is qualifying for the sprint, so you never know if the Ferrari is able to make it in time or if he's just out of qualifying overall in the race, possibly. But both of them unable to attend. Not a good sign for the Ferraris. It's not the worst. They're accustomed to racing. I think this is just, it definitely will throw them back a little to come into the session to find all of their competition putting in good laps or maybe getting that practice in that maybe they're lacking in, and that could be very crucial. Cobra, though, he finds himself way off the pace than he would wish. Same with Max and JDB. Souls without a lap time. Lewis, who's right behind Golden Sniper, finding that right limit. Max still keeping within it. Same with Cobra, but JDB off the time as much as he is, that's definitely going to be messing with you. Either he made a mistake of some sort, or he just hasn't fully started his lap where he's got his full potential out. But what you do see is, whoa, a little bit of carnage up there with Souls and a Haas. I don't know what exactly happened over there, but that is in the first sector. It's definitely going to maybe be looked at if there was possibly a holdup on traffic, or if that was just dangerous driving overall. Commentator will be taking a huge hit though right now. He's gonna get nice and toasty. I would recommend everyone else to enjoy the show and do the same, unless you're a racer on the track right now. I would probably advise against it. It'll mess with your coordination skills a lot. But as a as a tier 1 racer that used to race himself, it was a kind of a good luck charm for me. And a good luck charm for most of these racers were a lot of the tracks. Spain was a track I always wished that was on the calendar, but it's on pre-season actually for season 3. I don't think we've ever seen Spain as a track officially used in our calendars, so it is a little sad to not have a home GP, or to have people truly have enough experience with this track and truly race it. But I think it's just as good to have this track here so everyone can learn and they can base themselves off. And right there you can see what seems to be Renato retiring from the session, someone who looks like he's able to bring the competition when it comes to Tier 1, finds himself in P3, and most of all, surprisingly, just not where he wants to be, but what you want to be is Souls with the fastest middle sector. Really wonderful to have right there. He did get a little wide, not what you want, but I don't know how he races his lines. I don't know if that's exactly how he anticipated it, but what we are about to see is him crossing the line with a wonderful time that's going to find himself in the P11, right ahead of Mersaky, the Red Bull reserve driver, doing wonderful work right there, especially with how tight the competition's been. Taking a little onboard here, up again in the first sector. Seems almost as if there's more traffic, and it's involving what looks to be like another Haas, and it really makes you question what's going on up over there with the Haas driver that got him involved in 2 yellows and mysteriously having a car so close to the rear end of him. Either it's a mistake or it has to be some sort of collision. We're still on the onboard with Mersaky though. We're about to find where he finds the time. Most of all, it seems to be like he wasn't finding as much, but the consistency's there, and there you can see it right there. He is finding the time. It's in middle sector where it's the purple. That's definitely going to bring and boost his confidence, and it's going to make you wonder how much places is he going to gain from this if he could get this down. That is a beautiful lap from Mersaky right there. Finds himself right behind TTV's, thank God. Someone who looks like he has the pace to be a Tier 1 driver, but found himself having the inconsistencies during the race, falling out where he didn't want it the most, but he definitely looks like someone that deserves a spot if he's able to keep himself sandwiched in between Mark and Mersaky. A Red Bull sandwich for the Alpine right there. Drizzo also finding himself sandwiching Mersaky. Dan's still in the garage, but 2 people who are on their outlap is U6, someone who's proving himself today as a worthy driver, but is he able to avoid any accidents during this whole race weekend? U6 found himself with, I believe, a race ban in the end of the season nearly, or a qualifying ban, and that definitely wasn't something he needed. He was racking up points. I don't think he's anticipating to be racking any more points up. I think he wants to end that streak. He's keeping the streak strongly as well. The new revision on our points actually see it goes down to 12. So Souls, who finds himself in 12th place right now, is probably more than excited. He's probably happy to be right there off the start of a sprint qualifying. Hash Brown, who joins right now actually with 4 minutes left on the clock for the sprint qualifying in the Ferrari. It's going to be interesting to see if he's going to bring a last-minute lap out with 4 minutes on the clock. That means that we're missing only 2 drivers by the looks of it. If it happens to be that Hash Brown could get into the car seat. I don't know why. At the current moment, we don't see him popping up on our leaderboards. I'm so mistaken. It is not a sprint. I am keep on reverting back to how I saw it in Tier 2. Tier 2 we had the sprints, but right here we don't have the sprints. But what you do see is two cars finding themselves almost in the way of Souls right there, who does have his lap invalidated. But there you can see the Aston of what seemed to be like JDB starting his lap as his teammate U6 was off in the first sector. And speaking of that, JDB warming his tires up on the straightaway, a little odd there, not what I would think is a normal racing line, kind of taking up a lot of... Oh, he's getting off the racing line. I think he was absolutely bailing out of that. I think he was just trying to warm his tires up more than anything. Lewis, though, finding himself P16, and whoa, right there in the distance, you can see JDB losing it, going into the gravel, and he's not even on a lap, and he's almost losing the car once again. There's a car behind him. It's going to be a Williams. We're going to be seeing how he handles this. He gets out of the way appropriately, but that lack of grip, the way he was trying to get back on the gas, almost made him lose out the car completely again. Not what he wants, especially when there's been rumors that his seat's been under some threat. And I don't think it's something that you should take lightly. I think it's something that should be more of a motivation. JDB's had talent. He has talent still. It just feels more of like a Perez moment where he's having these situations and he just has more of a awareness in that kind of sense. He has awareness to get out of people's way, but I think how he gets back on gas, how he has with the racecraft, it's more affecting him than he'd wish. Speaking of wishing right now, we have the Haas and the McLaren both on laps. Skronzi on the preseason, though, bailing out of it, hoping to get Teddy, though. As Teddy starts his lap right now, bailing out of the outlap, warming the tires. Skronzi still in the first sector. As Teddy starts his in the first sector, he goes, bringing the car through the chicane. Wonderful work, to be honest, right there. Teddy, though, still not losing the time in the first sector, but still having a good margin right there that he could use that to push himself on for his final lap. With the time we have left, it's going to be Skronzi who's on his outlap, ready to start. Teddy bailing out, as you saw right there. He loses the grip, not where he wanted it, in the middle of that corner, and had to get off the gas as the Aston Martin ahead goes. The Haas, though, sitting what seems to be like the racing line, and now eating the gravel. Not what he really wants there. I think, in any case, you would want to bail onto, at that point, the left side of the line, because the lines merge, you know, and at a point like that, it's definitely going to do an effect. But what's making a huge effect right now is Skronzi, who's making the waves as we speak, going faster currently on his first sector, something that's going to motivate him as he goes through and he tries to take the approach and challenge to Vaughan, as Renato, who saw himself out earlier, can maybe lose the spot out to Marks, TTV, or maybe Drizzo. Drizzo, though, not with the confidence and pace anymore as the line's over and he's out at that point. But you have people that are still going faster, like Skronzi in the middle sector on the onboard. U6, who still is out for a lap. Inhumane Dan, who's still out for a lap himself. Mark, who gets himself into P3 right ahead of Renato. Wonderful work for the Red Bull driver. And then we have Skronzi, who's about to finish his lap, and we're about to see if he can take it. And he takes the pole position with a whopping 0.200 gap on the competition. Teddy, though, not making as much time as he wished. We're about to see if he's faster in this middle sector. It seems like he's not doing well. The confidence, the grip isn't there. It's not what Teddy wants, but what he does want is to show the Haas team that he is here to prove a point in the preseason that he's one of the best, and Renato, who might have himself a possible contender in that Ferrari-supplied team of the Haas. It's beautiful. A new TP for the Haas team. And they get a driver who hasn't quite seen track time go against Skronzi, a driver who got the line pick way earlier before him. Two rookies that were watching, technically going at it in the preseason. That is a short qualifying for the first race of Spain. We're going to watch the race pop up right now. That qualifying did watch Souls in P12 as we go up the order for U6, Mersaki, Dan, TTV sent by God, Drizzo, TTV again, Uru, Tygo Striker, Renato, Mark, Teddy, and Skronzi. That is a wonderful qualifying for those in the P12 range who could find themselves making points in our race for Spain preseason. I think we can make the predictions that you don't want to always leave it up to chance, right? Especially starting off the line. You always want to make sure you have a good start, but it's not good enough that it places you under threat in the first corner. You don't know how aggressive everyone's going to be, especially with the new faces around. With Spain, I feel like I can predict that there's going to be a lethal wreck in corner one. It's possible. It's been seen before. The real question is, who's going to take the off-road? I think if there is going to be a wreck, how many people are going to take the advantage of going off track to avoid it, not getting a penalty if they can avoid doing so, and how well these people could go wheel to wheel. With how big these cars are, we are about to start the lights, and the lights are about to go off in Spain as we start the race. It's going to be a wonderful getaway for the Haas driver of Teddy Vaughan, and there you can see Skronzi, who's losing out right there, going side by side with Renato, his own teammate. They're going through the first corner, losing out to the driver up ahead. It's not what you want to see, but what you do see behind is places getting swapped all around. Everyone's keeping it nice and tidy. That's what you like to see, and there's more action in the back. And then here you can see Hash Brown, who didn't get a time choice quite in, right behind with Souls, going side by side, and still having the outer exit. And there, right up in the back, you can see that one of the Alpines, TTV St. God, is losing some space there. And there's more fighting with Souls and Hash Brown as Souls gets all the maneuvers left wrong. And there's a huge wreck that's involved the previous Tier 1 race winner for Season 2 out in P18 with a huge wreck. That is not what you want to see. And there's more battling that's still happening with Lewis, JDB, Max the Mesa, and Souls, who's now gained away from that whole situation all itself. I'd like to figure out what happened in that whole wreck, because we saw the previous World Driver Championship driver, Hash Brown, someone who had immense pace in Season 1, almost took the challenge and the victory if he only had enough time, and now you can actually see that there's a safety car. Already a safety car off the bat. That's going to help Golden Sniper, and that's going to help Hash Brown. And I think that might have been a safety car due to the fact that Hash Brown might have wrecked under the pits. Like, going into the pit lane. I think he might have carried too much speed and done more damage, possibly. Or I could be completely wrong. I could be completely wrong, of course, but that was The only car I saw stopped was in third sector with the Ferrari. I think that had to be Hash Brown who took a wreck, and that's the reason the safety car came out. And Hash Brown took a huge wreck off the bat, to be honest with you, completely. I don't know what happened with him, but what you do see is Renata going into the pits, and a few others, like Stryker, also going into the pits. And I want to say that was a huge, huge move for the Williams driver as well, because the Williams found himself making up a lot more places than he'd wish, and in P4, Stryker can bring a challenge. Stryker, of course, is getting a fresh compound on, and we do have another driver, by the sounds of it, going into the paddocks, arriving a little late, probably making it up for the second race. Teddy, though, locking the car tires up, trying to make it for the safety car. There, you can see the whole safety car, everyone getting piled back up. Scronzi, Mark back in P3, initially losing that place out. We have Drizzo, who's finding himself P4. A few other racers, though, who have made the early pit stops, taking the tire advantage by the sounds of it. It seems like they want to get that early pit stop in and to avoid any mishaps early on, as the people who go onto the hards is going to be both the Williams drivers with the Haas driver of TTV, King Cobra on fresh mediums, Golden Sniper and Hash Brown, who found themselves going onto those hards in the pits when they got the damage they got earlier. And otherwise, everyone up ahead has fairly older tires by 2 laps, maybe 1 lap max. But it's going to be a recovery drive mostly for Golden Sniper and Hash Brown, who I would hope can make up and get close to that safety car. Otherwise, he might be out of it for the first race, which is not something you want to see. Everyone, though, warming their tires up. You can see Renato, who's prepared and more racy than ever. And in fact, we've seen a few changes in the rulebook in recent times. We have seen that drivers need to give each other the space, right? They need to give each other the space all the time. But what we also saw is once the safety car has officially gone in, you're allowed to race wheel to wheel again, how it used to be in 2021. And I think that's going to see a lot more people have that pressure kind of applied back onto them, because now everyone's going to be constantly either trying to attack, or if they miss their attack off the start of the line, if they want to be over aggressive, could easily lose their place out to poor timing. I think you have to always have your timing prepared. That's why you usually want to stick back and ease off the gas until you see that car right ahead of the car ahead of that person start. That way you get the best launch, especially when you know you have to coast it a little. In this corner, I don't know, say for instance we go into the last corner of Sector 3. If I saw the person ahead of me slow down, I'd coast, but I'd gradually apply the power when they were fully kicking it back onto gas. That way I had the better run on them. Necessity, it's not always that way, right? Like, it's always a trick, always a gamble. And more importantly, it's going to be a gamble for the drivers up ahead who want to nail this right. And there you can see Teddy, who warms the cars up and gets them all ready to start off. And right off the bat, you can see Drizzo, who's about to make this first overtake in Tier 1, but doesn't. He doesn't have the movement to strike. He can't get that car into the window he wishes for. He brakes earlier than he wishes for, not being as aggressive on the brakes as he usually would be. But what you can see is that everyone's keeping it nice and tidy, and everyone's battling it out, and especially Renato, who's finding himself going too wide with the Aston Martin. And right behind, you can see the driver of Tygo Striker, who finds himself in the back right now. the Haas driver TTV getting cut off by JDB's defense right there. A little aggressive, but what you see right there is JDB struggling by the seams of it to get back on the gas, kinda hindering and slowing down the Haas driver and holding up everyone behind. That's not what you like to see. JDB is now becoming what would be a DRS train and holding back everyone and getting more cars, potentially bringing the pressure on him is what I was going to say, place him under threat, and he rejoins unsafely and collides with Dan and gets thrown back on track dangerously, almost rejoining unsafely in front of the Williams driver of Striker, getting back off track. That's not what you wanted to see from the Aston Martin. I talked about it before. U6 was under threat earlier this discussion, this whole season. I talked about it, and there you saw it right there again. And right now, it's going to bring the battle now up to 12th place, where the points are last ending it. And the Williams driver of Dan, who is, by the way, Tier 2 driver who got the permission to go into Tier 1 today, into that beautiful blue car and having a battle with the Haas drivers. And right up ahead, you can see Max the Mesa go off a little bit with TT sent by God holding it strong, as Renato now gets a run beautifully going side by side and can get that gap in, and he pushes his car in, but who pushes the car back? It's TTV send God. It's a little bit of wheel banging. God having a terrible line that's gonna send Renato off on the left-hand side of the dirt, not what Renato wants. And now the pressure's back from the Alpine, and the wheels are banging. He makes a move that was last minute, and it's gonna see him collide a little bit with the Alpine, because the anger and the elbows are running deep between both these people. Renato, who's getting his wheel in, and trying to say, you have to leave me the space, as Drizzo is feeling the pressure. Drizzo, who was up there earlier before, finds himself now with a 3-second time penalty and in 8th place, as Drizzo burns his battery, goes on the attack for Lewis, and gets up to 7th place, trying to get away from the braking pace of Renato, who is stuck now behind the Mercedes driver of Lewis. And now, the Alpine and Mercedes dishing it out oddly on track right there, as the McLaren also has to ease off the gas. It's terrible, terrible for the Mercedes family right here, as right there you see both the cars struggling for grip, as Renato breaks it even and does beat him for the traction race right there, as Lewis now has the pressure applied from the Alpine behind, and the teamwork, either teamwork or defense seen from Drizzo, sees him now back down the place, but helping out his teammate, who's now in the back of Lewis with the DRS to strike. Drizzo now also in the back, able to strike if he gets that DRS and can't lose out. But what you do see is Renato with his braking pace seen from Season 2, trying to take the challenge back up to the top runners. And right up ahead, you can see a few of these cars pitting, and also Mark, who's also trying to catch back up. And right there, Drizzo going for the move on Renato. I was trying to look for that battle most of all, and there he eats the curb more than he would wish, gets a terrible line and forces Renato the wide way around, and Drizzo just not giving the space appropriately and fighting as cleanly as you'd wish, but he's still making a challenge for those all around, and he bumps wheels going in, turning in onto Lewis. The space is almost left all the way out for the drivers onto this track. And there, you can see the Alpines and Mercedes battling it all. Oh my goodness, it is just never ending. And now you have the driver as TTV sent by God on the back of his own teammate. Both the Alpines earlier, who've been in the Tier 1 positions, couldn't make it this race. But now they have replacements coming in, both who were Tier 2, trying to make a name for themselves, seeing quite a ruckus here a little. Not what they wish, but they still are bringing a wonderful battle. And right in the back, you can see what seems to be a Haas who's spun. It's Teddy. And JDB, a severe collision with Teddy. The lead Haas, who was going for this, has ran into a collision with the Aston Martin, who gets a 10-second penalty. JDB, who's off into the gravel, who's this is preseason, ladies and gentlemen. This is Tier 1. These drivers have raced here before. I think that is insane. JDB now has wing damage, and he made a collision with a Haas driver. He retires in the pits, and that brings out another safety car. This is why we have preseason, ladies and gentlemen. It helps us understand a lot of situations on and off track. I think what we just saw there, if we could get the clip for it, it might have been JDB, possibly in a huge wreck with one of the lead runners. Now, that's nothing out of the question. That's very normal. But it makes you wonder how that 10-second penalty happened, how that Haas got there in that way he was. Obviously, the Aston Martin slowed down appropriately and waited for him. I think that was appropriate, nice of him. But I don't know what technically happened. And there you can see, actually, the Aston Martin leads the paddocks. He's too upset. He's not waiting for the next race afterwards, because we go right to Hungary. We're taking a flight trip all the way to Hungary right after this race in Spain. So him leaving right there on the spot, it also pokes a few more questions. Golden Sniper, though, getting a 10-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Not what he wants there. I could already hear the loud, angry Aussie noises a mile away. He is probably upset about that 10-second penalty. But further, we have a huge switch up on the grid for the biggest situation ever. We have Drizzo, who's also getting a little too close to that safety car and bumped into it, looked like, a little. I think everyone who's currently out on their tires are going to be a little under threat. They have to get onto a new set of pair. The safety car is already out. The grid's going to be so bunched up. I don't think there's going to be that gap for these drivers to necessarily get away like they wish they could. It will be Drizzo, though, who will be seeing the car restart. Drizzo, who's found himself in a few situations, also getting everyone all antsy behind with how he's carrying the car. Dan, who's going into the pits, though. Dan calling it safer than never, knowing that everyone up ahead will have the more worn-in tires, but he'll have the fresher compound to strike back. I think if you're sticking out, it's definitely going to hurt your race. I can tell Teddy's definitely... This is a huge hit for the Haas team. They went in this with a lot more confidence, a lot of high talks, a lot of high hopes with the driver pairing. They were doing wonderful in the qualifying, the short qualifying. Now, it's a question of, can Teddy bring it back? Teddy's with Striker. There's a lot of traffic up ahead. Can these drivers technically get out of this situation? And it's more unfortunate that it involved a driver that we were talking about going into this race. We said, looks like they were under threat, stakes, yada yada. It's natural, but to talk about it and then have it happen, it's almost of a commentary curse. And that has to be demotivating. Not good for the Aston family, not good for the Mercedes family there, but what is good is that we're about to get the racing back away on action, and the safety car actually is going to see itself ready to start back up. We're going to watch everyone. More importantly, I think we're going to see some insane battling off the start of this restart. Hash Brown, though, on the older hards, everyone up ahead on the older compounds going to feel the pressure. They're going to be a little slower than they wish, And Drizzo, who hasn't quite slowed down enough for the safety car, is going to see everyone slowed off the pack right there a lot more than he'd wish, and he gets a better start. Drizzo, with the time and the space he needs, get a safety restart going as we have Scronzy right on the back of Hash Brown as Hash Brown goes on the back of TTV, and now TTV, who holds a strong defense, holds the line, and Hash Brown, who gets his lines all now crossed over with the older compounds, trying to defend against the McLaren, and the Ferrari switches to the left outside line as Mark makes the inner corner, wonderfully getting it done. Those old hearts are definitely feeling the heat now as everyone is battling it out, including U6 and the driver of Renato, who gets out of there and pulls away to get right alongside with Meraki through this chicane, and he pulls it through over ever so slightly. It was so close. But what you do notice is Drizzo getting another 3-second penalty, not something he needs there. And there's another situation that seems to have everyone all crossed up. It's going to have Max the Mesa involved, and it's going to have U6, who we saw up ahead, falling down the orders, tumbling. We saw him earlier. We saw those flags up. We were questioning what was going on, and now we have Golden Sniper off on the grass. Drizzo, who gets himself a 10-second penalty, going too fast, going into the pit lane there. Not what he wants. A lot of ruckus right there in the midfield. And a lot more ruckus is happening right up ahead, as you can see the battle going strong between the top 4 through 6 right now, including Souls, who's having a battle of his own, battling off Lewis by the seams of it, and also trying to get his nose in on Hash Brown. And he does get his nose in on Hash Brown with the medium compound. Hash Brown, who's going to try to keep the advantage on the inside, driving Souls nearly off the road onto the curb there. And Souls, who's wanting to get past, he's feeling antsy, he's feeling the drivers of the Mercedes up behind closely, and he wants to get behind Renato or Meraki, more likely, because now Meraki gets overtaken by Renato. Souls wants to get past, he doesn't want to be held up any longer by the Ferrari driver up ahead. And speaking of back in the order, we see Inhumane Dan, who's getting his nose all into the battle with the Mercedes team of King Cobra. There's so much action on. I don't even know what's going on, but what you do see what's going on is the dangerous driving from King Cobra's little angle of his car right there, who got Triangle Striker a little mixed up by the seams of it. But we can't really deny what is in the right and wrong, because there's so much battling going on that it's almost musical to my ears that the drivers haven't gone into a deadly collision yet. Hash Brown, who thinks better of it, he has nowhere to go, but he's feeling the pressure, and now the driver of Inhumane Dan gets his nose in with the fresher soft compound. Those hard tires are dying, like we said once before, and Hash Brown's now feeling the heat. He's the previous driver champion and found himself in trouble, and now that's two drivers right there. It's the V-Carb of what seems to be Souls and the driver and Inhumane Dan coming in wrecks and collision together. And now everyone who's trying to get past the driver of the Ferrari, and now it's going 3 wide. It's King Cobra on the inside, Teddy, who's trying to get back up the places he's lost out. And right behind, you can see Striker and the Alpine getting a little bumpy there. And at the moment, Hash Brown, who's trying to hold on with his old compounds, has to face off with the DRS as he watches people up ahead get eaten by the DRS, like Lewis, who's trying to get away and gets back on the racing line, trying to defend from Teddy, who doesn't yield and throws in a dive that misses completely, but he still has a wonderful line that helps him defend from the Ferrari as they both go in to that line. Ferrari pulling out, the Haas pulling through into P8 he goes, and now Teddy, who wants to get back up the order, finds himself back up many positions he's once lost, and the defense from Lewis is holding strong, but it's going to give him a weird, awkward line there, and that's going to help Teddy, who gets the stronger exit. Those medium compounds now feeling a lot better than what seems to be the softs at the current moment, as King Cobra, who's in P6, is going to have to hold off and fend from the Haas driver, who's carrying the speed and the pace right now. Mark Lax, though, because we haven't been talking about the front, we better talk about the front. It's Mark Lax who's in P2. And there, at the moment, speaking about him, he almost gets loose. That's not what we want to see. Keeping it into the DRS zone, though. Just like Masaki, who has the DRS on the driver of TTV in the Haas seat, getting past him and getting it done just like how Teddy did, because the Haas team aren't done. They want to get some moves over, and they're going to bring the competition on. And right behind, you can see the points going to P12. It's Striker who's going to be keeping it safe, a little off the back from Hash Brown, who's just not feeling it with that old hard tire compound. And up ahead, you can see what seemed to be Teddy that could have possibly messed up his cornering a little there, but I don't think it was. I think that's how he takes that line. But in the other news, what you can notice is that Scronzy, who did start P2, is trying to pull away from the lead Red Bull of Mark Lax. In the back, though, what you can notice is the Mercedes driver of King Cobra now having Striker on the back of him. Souls, who gets a 3-second penalty, facing a 10-second penalty by a wreck, it seems like, with the driver of Inhumane Dan. But, oh, ever so much space left just barely by Hash Brown and TTV that they don't make a collision, but Hash Brown gets it done, gets the move done again on not just one, but two drivers, and now he finds himself having to defend from the Alpine, forces the door shut on the Alpine, so they go too wide through the corner. Wonderful defense and wonderful move from the Ferrari driver that now sees Golden Sniper get the action done by overtaking the Alpine, who got done dirty from the wonderful move seen by the Ferrari. But what you can know is that one of the drivers up ahead, it seems like U6, is having troubles. And there, speaking of troubles, it is King Cobra who went onto the grass there. Not what he needed. I don't know what quite happened there. It must have been the lack of grip and continuing to apply the power to try to not lose time that got him and his line all wrong there. A rookie mistake, I would say, not something you quite want to see, but it's not ever so wrong, because at this point, it's going to get his tires dirty, and that's just enough for what Hash Brown needs to get the move taken done. But right up ahead, you can see what seems to be TTV Thank God almost rejoining unsafely, but also having what seemed to be like a wreck with Golden Sniper. That's going to be a place he loses out on. And the flag is shut close, and that is where it goes. And that's not even with the time penalties at the current moment, but what you do know is that is the first race of preseason. Getting it done is Scronzy in the McLaren, ahead of Mark Lax and ahead of his teammate Renato. And Renato, who was almost able to bring the battle onto Mark Lax with how close that gap was. A 10-second penalty for Souls, not what he wished for. And JDB retiring and DNFing from the session, finding himself in a collision with the Ferrari of Hash Brown, who started from the back, finds himself P8 on the old 16-lap, old hard tires. That's wonderful work from him. Even better work from the Haas family, who find themselves 5 and 6. I can't say anything more besides a wild race. That is going to be a win for Scronzy, the American driver right there. Mark Lax finding himself P2. Wonderful celebration for the McLaren family, as Renato's also on the podium, giving that whole confidence for the McLaren team to reassure them they have this going into the actual season. Preseason, it's always to confirm where everyone stands, you know. But I think more importantly, it shows you how some of these drivers want you and expect you to race on track. And if we go to race director, I imagine there's countless incidents. Look at that, beautifully incidents everywhere. And we're going to see at least a guaranteed in the fact that some of these drivers are going to send in clips. They want to look at how, we handle certain situations. But more importantly, I want to see how these drivers can handle the situations of most of the penalties that get awarded and how some of them are looked at. I think a few drivers are still under threat. And speaking of the fact, if we actually look in the Aston family, it seems like it's not U6 now. It is JDB who kind of leaves the race prematurely. I haven't heard any word about him coming in for what would I say? Going in for another race, because we have Hungary. We just took the flight out now. See, look at this. We're in the qualifying already. Look at this. Took a nice little flight out. We're here. But we don't see where everyone really is at this point. We have one person that prematurely leaves. That's a sign that kind of shows and tells and gives, in the sense that maybe they don't have that confidence, In fact, there's been talks about other drivers a little furious on track about JDB. JDB leaving the paddock with no answers to give. It's a little discrediting, a little worrying. I think as the Red Bull family TP, that could always give you the right to figure out who you want to place in that next seat. Of course, Aston Martin doesn't have a TP, nor does VCarb. But when they do get independent, we've seen it before in the Ferrari family. Richly ran by Sonseca completely. Saw himself with Hash Brown and Leo. Hash Brown, who's making this race, but Leo, who's unfortunately not here at the moment. We saw independence for Kick Sauber when the promotion was given to what's it called? His name's I forgot his name, but it's Shining Swarm. He got the promotion from Haas to Kick Sauber. That gave independence to that team. The independence to Haas was given when the new TP came in, and that's where you see these two wonderful Haas drivers come in. And I think if you have that teamwork dynamic, and you especially talk with your TPs as well, it can avoid these confusions, these conflicts that are always seen in the deeper roots of the teams. Brownie, though, the driver for the taking in for the Ferrari team, though, finds himself getting into the seat last minute. Wonderful work for him. He wasn't able to get in for the first flight all the way out to Spain, but he got his tickets reordered, and whoa, I guess Mark Lax, or no, that was Mersaki's team right there. They struggled getting him out of the pits a little bit by the seams of it. But a few people already out for their laps is Souls, PTV sent by God, Inhumane Dan, and that's a good show sign for wanting to get that lap out early. It's always about the practice. Otherwise, you go nowhere. It's always circles. If you don't push yourself during these qualifyings, you more than ever struggle when it comes to the race. Of course, the mileage on those tires isn't something you always want, but if you can even just go out on an old compound tire set and just run those out and see how they feel, you could get yourself adjusted to how it feels to lose that grip, how you could control the car through the corners more majestically, as we are on that onboard with Souls. he is one of the first people out, and it's going to be an interesting selling time, in a way. Show telling sign that maybe the traffic up ahead isn't in his way. Because if the traffic is there, it's going to definitely mess with him. As we do watch those souls on this lap, get the tires out, you can see the one person on the mediums, it's going to be the Haas. A purple sector for souls right there. Of course, he is the first one going out, so you always want to take these kind of laps with a grain of salt. It's always the best approach is to think of these as your benchmark lap. Of course, you want to push yourself hard, but you don't want to go over and beyond and lose the car, lose the lap, and damage everything. And speaking of damage, Dan, who found himself in contact with Soul's last race, finds himself putting the damage on for the time, beating, in fact, Soul's lap time. And, whoa, there is a little bit of what seems to be a little confusion with Lewis and some heat with Dan on track. The Mercedes teams, both on their outlaps, sort of getting in the way of what seemed to be the Williams of Inhumane Dan, who was probably going for another run by the sounds of it, and gets all tied up and twisted. Lewis, who faces now what seems to be a 5 grid place penalty. Scronzi, though, he definitely wants to tell everyone where they should stand. Scronzi's leading the board with a 114.6. Teddy right behind, ready to nick it off if he's able to. Renato finding himself again in P3, and Mark, right where he was nearly last session before he stole third place from Renato. Is he able to do that again? That's something I think could be huge. With the top runners and how they look right now, it's almost as if Scronzi has the pace over Renato. And that's hard to say because we saw Renato do so well. And right there, U6 disqualified from blocking in the pit lane. Why, what has gone on over there? U6 disqualified from the session. Very odd measures. It makes you wonder if he wrecked going into the pit lane and just completely blocked the pit lane. And there you can actually see it. He did. That is a huge wreck for the Aston Martin of U6 right there. He was getting his drive in and he absolutely clobbered the pit lane wall. Not what he wished for. And that's definitely going to be a huge wreck on the confidence of U6. There are cautions in Sector 2. It seems to be a Mercedes. It seems to be the Mercedes of Lewis. Renato, who's on the outlap. We'll take a look on him as I will be quickly AFK. I'll be right back. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I am back, and right now we are coming to the fact that we just saw rain now taking a drizzle onto the track. Everyone better get their laps in, or it's going to be over. Everyone is going to be feeling the pressure to get out on track before it's too late. What seems to be an Alpine, or was that a Williams, off on the one of the sectors, Sector 2 going to Sector 3 on the straightaway. Marklax getting the overtake, what seems to be like on one of the Mercedes as he's going for his lap and hoping to beat anyone possibly that... Oh, but he gets the lap all wrong right there, gets it invalidated by going off wide with the water drizzle kicking in. I'd imagine that's definitely messing with a few drivers right now as Max the Mesa retires from the session. He feels confident that that's the best he could do with the situation that's at heart. Mark definitely out of the lap there. Renato not particularly finding time and then actually losing the grip through the corners by the seams of it. Not what Renato wants there, as he's pushing the car to the max under the wet weather, but it's definitely something that I think spells the tell story of what qualifying has to show. With the initial response coming from Skronzi on his first lap, that's where it came from, but now you can see Renato just struggling ever so much to get that grip back, and now everyone's going into the pits. Cobra, who finds himself out still not good. Brownie, who didn't even get out, can't put down another lap, as everyone who currently in the pits finds himself in the worst situation ever. They can't get another lap out unless they go and try to beat a time on the intermediates, which, to be honest, it could be possible, but just I doubt it will have the pace with how late it is on track. If it was earlier, I believe the Inters in that right window could have done it. It's a very hard place to get it, but with these new regs and everything, I wouldn't be able to say. But what I can say is everyone's out of the session where they stand, because it's either you get the practice now on those Inters, or you try to beat your lap on the wet weather. Like I can't tell you that's possible. But what is going on right now is that you're seeing one of the drivers still on track as everyone in the pits are retiring. They see the rain coming up. They know it's over. Cobra absolutely punching it, losing the car in a huge wreck. That is Cobra finding himself in a huge wreck at the end of qualifying on the softs. I think that's definitely going to throw the pit crew a headache. They have to fix the car going into the race, and they only got so much time. But what you do see is there's still three people in the pits. There's Brownie, there's Mark, and there's Renato. And what you do see is what the team is Renato on Inters going out. That's wonderful. Some of these drivers actually didn't take the time to truly understand the track when it came to wet weather. I think that is something that Renato can actually just get a little practice on and give himself a little advantage that some of these racers didn't give themselves a chance if the weather ever so slightly changes going into this weekend. Renato, though, definitely struggling for grip as well. Renato, though, showing the crowd over here in Hungary how it's done to drive the wet weather track on the outlap right here with 4 minutes on the clock left to go. Renato struggling for the grip, but he's still pushing the car with the power, and he's doing a nice job with it too. It's kind of a little of its own satisfaction. And now you see Mark getting the practice on the Inters as well. I think this is huge. But Brownie, who's been sitting in the pits the whole time, that's a little worrisome. I hope he's not just in the car, not driving at all. Because if we come to this pit lane and he's not attending his own seat, that would be a lot to worry over. Very worrisome. And oh, that's a huge wreck for the driver of Renato. It makes you wonder how the car managed to scrape past that one alive. Renato now going into the pits there. Mark, though, feeling a lot more confident, a lot more smooth through his corners. Definitely something you like to see. Even though it's invalidated, I think that's definitely what you want. Renato definitely pushing the car to its limits and getting close, brushing and colliding with a few barriers by the seams of it. Mark keeping it in the lines, keeping it nice and tidy, goes into the pits, gets it all nice, gets it all finished. But Brownie, the Ferrari driver who found himself in the pits, still in the pits, not with a lap, not with anything. Makes you wonder if he's still there. It's very, very concerning, very worrisome, but we could only hope. It's unfortunate JDB didn't even care to come into the second race for preseason. I think if we look at it, JDB took preseason first race in Spain, got a poor result out of it, leaves the paddocks, doesn't explain anything, and then on top of that, he doesn't go into the next weekend. I think that's worrisome for the Red Bull family's TP. It's not something you want to watch your driver do. If the communication's there with JDB and the TP of Red Bull, I think maybe something could be worked out. But at this point, it might have gone so far that we could see JDB at a possible loss for his Tier 1 spot going into this season. And it's actually pretty funny that we have TTV Woo Woo MX with the mediums right behind Marklax. Drizzo, who finds himself behind that Hash Brown, who gets it a little wrong this time and can't bring his pace as much as he'd usually be up with Mark. Of course, he's still there, but that's definitely going to take a blow to him. I think I saw a mistake from him going into this race, but Golden Sniper finds himself P11. That's wonderful. I think that was a stronger start than his last quali, and I think that's a good showing for this race. The lights, of course, are going to go out pretty shortly here. Everyone giving the proper amount of time before starting up before the lobby. It's a respectful thing to do. I can respect the drivers for doing this. You didn't see it that much in Tier 2, but I think this is what we like to see. A little bit of waiting, a little bit of everyone getting ready, getting their cars rightly tuned before the big race. It's the second race of preseason for Tier 1, and we're going to see some beautiful things happening, and especially now, with the lights counting down, here we are at Hungary, and we're about to have the lights go with Skronzi leading the way, and Mark, who finds himself right in the lead somehow? That's got to be a mistake by the team over there in the back, but in the back you can also see what seemed to be the Red Bull colliding with the V-Carbon. There's a huge wreck. Oh my goodness, it's a Valtteri Bottas moment right there happening before your eyes as Dan has to get back on the track. Brownie disqualified for parking in a dangerous location. Parking not even starting the race, just as I feared for Brownie right there. The Williams drivers though, both in the back, not what they like to see. Souls on the back of the Hash Brown driver champion, holding close to the pack up ahead, who all are on their own battle as Skronzi pulls away with a wonderful gap. And now Renato applies the pressure. Up ahead, it's tight. In the back, it's tight. But what you can notice is it's a terrible start for the Williams. U6 with what seems to be another penalty going into the pits. This time not destroying the car going into it. That's a good telling of a sign right there. Dan retiring from the session though. He gets the car right into the pits, and he's telling the engineers to turn the car off. It's over. It is over. This early in the session, it's not a good telling. It's not what you want. it could always make a comeback later into the game, but if he has some sort of side pod damage or floor damage, it's safer than ever to put the car in. Of course, I'm not down there at the Williams garage and I can't tell you what's going on, but it is obvious that Dan has put the car up and retired it. Skronzi, though, he leads the field, and what seems to be in the back is U6 with a fresh wing by the sounds of it, and Striker. Otherwise, the backfield battle is with Max, Lewis, Cobra, and Murasaki. Murasaki, though, pulling in some wonderful defense, but did see himself possibly in the collision with one of the V-Carbs, going side by side, almost pushed off, but Cobra getting his car in, neatly done, and taking the inner line as Murasaki's losing out and seems to be off into AI mode. He's losing all the positions, not what he wants. But what you do want to see is Mark, who's in a battle with one of the Alpines. It's Drizzo, who's now collided with the Red Bull driver on the soft tires. Mark, who's on the mediums, he's probably going to apply the pressure neatly onto the Alpine ahead and force him into a mistake. Drizzo has this sort of confidence that you like to see, but going into the session fresh with everyone, it's always going to spark controversy with every collision you get into, every bump, every tackle. Drizzo, though, closing in, slowing on the corners, keeping the car all tidy, but making Mark getting frustrated, staying behind. Not what he needs right there. It's Drizzo who's taking these odd lines, trying to get Hash Brown backed up onto the tail of Mark. Hash Brown putting the car out of the slipstream for a second, thinking better of it, carrying the speed through the corner, neatly done, not colliding into the back of Mark, as King Cobra gets the move almost onto Max Mesa. Max Mesa, who goes off onto the curb but gets back on the track, neatly done, has the driver of Lewis on the side, but now he pulls out, and Lewis, who pulls out, gets Souls to pull out, and now it's a pull-out game, and Souls, who's now riding on the back of Lewis, is chasing down for the positions of P12 and above, which provide the place points. But up ahead, you can also say there's more of a battle going on just as much in the back, which includes Renato just barely closing and inching his way into second place over Teddy. Renato, who now carries the pace, going in for it. Going and getting the move done, wonderfully holding the position that keeps Teddy awkwardly in the corner, but Teddy, carrying more speed, collides and bumps into the back. Not what he wishes for, but what you do wish for is the move for Max to get it done, but Souls gets the done move on his own teammate, and right on that, ever so much, you can see Cobra getting the car all lost and gone, as now Souls makes another place. Not only does he get the move done on his teammate, he gets the move done on a Mercedes who's struggling, and now there's another Mercedes struggling right ahead of him, and also right up ahead you can see the driver of what seemed to be a McLaren getting it wrong and having the Haas right up on his tail. It's a McLaren 1-2, Haas 3-4, but I think that might have been Mark who was losing the places, and I might have not noticed. But what you do notice is right up ahead, it's the drive between Hash Brown and Drizzo. It's a Ferrari versus Alpine. We've seen these battles before, and now Drizzo, who's getting ahead, is carrying that pace, and those future Mercedes engines, I were to say, more of right now in there is a Renault. Beautiful Alpine engine. Oh, I can't believe it. so beautiful to the hum. I don't know. I don't drive the Alpine. I wouldn't know. But what I do know is that Hash Brown is bringing that battle to the Alpine and getting it finished. And right up ahead is going to be the sister team he once drove for. It was Haas. And that is the team he finished in. And now Haas, who's found themselves dominant once again with the right pairing, with the right energy, and the right team behind it all, fending off for the top 3 positions, and TTV fending off for his own 4th place position. This is something he wants to finish in and be proud of, because this is the highest position he could get and prove to the Haas team that he's deserved keeping as he goes off onto the curb. And there's a little defense, a little collision almost, and almost wrapping each other up as they go to wide. They lose a lot of time, keeping the Alpine shortly behind. But then the move that's about to get done right alongside with the Haas, and they almost throw each other off the road a little bit, but they're keeping it as much as they can with the limited space these big cars have. Now the Haas having the force of Drizzo on the right hand side because of that move being done by Hash Brown the way it was. It perfectly applied the pressure that allowed Drizzo to get his car perfectly positioned, and now that opens up a whole DRS train that allows a late lunge from the Alpine. That gives a late lunge to the Haas, and now that gives it 3 wide, and now the battle is truly on as Hash Brown is losing the places as Marklax holds on the outside. They collide previously before in Season 2. They collide once again in Season 3 preseason. And then Drizzo gets it all wrong, and that gives the window right to Hash Brown, who gets the move done and is over it with Drizzo. He's tired of being behind the Alpine driver and being side by side. He wants that move finished, and he gets a little antsy, biting a little bit of the curb in the chicane as he gets through into Sector 2, as Marklax is now behind the Alpine and is in the Alpine sandwich almost, with TTV, thank God, trying to close in on that DRS gap. Drizzo, though, losing the place. I didn't quite see what happened, but Mark gets it done. And right up ahead, you can see Hash Brown getting the move done on the Haas team. And there he goes, looking for 4th place. And right there, you can see Teddy, who... that's not Teddy, that's TTV who goes into the pits. And that's also Renato. Marklax on the back of Hash Brown now, trying to keep in with the DRS. The Alpine drivers losing out now ever so much to the Red Bull. Of course, there's another battle though, and it's in the back with TTV on that fresh tire compound on the back of Max the Mesa, who's almost slowed them up and got in a little wreck because of how the lines are taken between both drivers. And Max the Mesa almost losing it and getting on the track unsafely with the wing damage he has on the left side of that car. And TTV nearly losing out and dying to the V-carb, gets out of the way of the speeding Max, I would say, as U6 now has to deal with the wing-damaged V-carb up ahead. The top 3, though, going into the pits. Mark, who seems to be staying out, and now you can see the move being done by U6, getting the move on the broken V-carb, and the V-carb who's losing the positions now. Drizzo in for his stop, as there you see Teddy getting his fresh tires on, Skronzi getting out of the pits, and there you can see the gap building up. If anyone up ahead slows down the driver of the McLaren, if you can make that much time, then maybe Mark can pull away. But right now, by the seams of it, it seems like TTV sent by God is still able to keep in the DRS zone. And Brownie, who's now left the session from the Ferrari team, who never really was in here in the first place, now officially is out of the garage. He's doing something, I can't quite tell, would have to get news on that. TTV, though, on the back of Lewis, carrying more speed and thinking better of putting his car in a position to attack, bumping and kissing the rear end of Lewis through the corners, trying to get through with a lot of frustration now. Lewis, though, going for the inner corner, and now that seems like the Haas driver, now furious, gets the move done as Hash Brown as well gets the move done. The Mercedes, who was in the midst of it all, now watches as right up ahead the two Ferrari-powered teams fight and duel it out as the Hash Brown is pulling alongside of the Haas. And now, there you see it, Ferrari versus Haas into the first corner, and the banging of wheels is seen going into the corner. Hash Brown having a sharper line to work with, having a poorer exit, gives the better line to Lewis, and now the Haas driver of TTV is trying to pull away. U6, though, now feeling the pressure of TTV, though, from behind, as Hash Brown is trying to keep up with the lead, well, not the lead, the second Haas. And there, you can see him getting the move a little wrong right there and losing a little bit of the car, not only once, but twice, eating some grass. He's getting out of focus. Hash Brown losing the confidence through a few of these corners, not what you want to see. But Lewis, as well, he's defending from the driver of the Alpine Drizzo. Skronzi, though, taking the fastest lap as the Mercedes of Lewis goes into the pits. Same with Mark going into the pits himself. A few places for some of these drivers to get right here as Mark gets on the fresher compound, and it's going to be the softs that he's going to carry out to the end of this race. And there you can see the move being done from the Alpine as he gets the dive in for the Aston Martin of U6. P12 going to Souls, though, at the moment, if he could defend, if Lewis has the current pace to strike. It's a nice at-peace moment, I can say. A moment that could give me a moment to breathe going into these DRS zones. We still have Hash Brown on the back of that Haas. We still have a few drivers like the Aston Martin fighting it out with Marklax on the wheel-to-wheel action. And there you can see Marklax getting it done. Who's trying to get it back up to places? Action is with the Ferrari team, though, and that is them going wheel to wheel as the Haas throws a little bit of a defensive move right there as the Ferrari bangs wheels a little by accident, trying to hold the grip and not getting a tighter line. That forces him to bump into the car right there, and that makes him lose out a lot more than he would wish. There's definitely some beef stew going on with those two, but what you do see is the Haas, who seems to lose it a little there. I don't know if that was an internet issue or what that was, but what you did see is the Haas losing back out from the Ferrari, who's now ahead, and that's going to be the Haas having to redo the whole move on the Ferrari again. Although Golden Sniper, who's been having a fairly mellow race in P10, P9 throughout this whole way, keeping it nice and steady, not getting it too much trouble in his name, keeping it nice, has Souls now on the left-hand side, getting the move done as they go into the long straightaway, and there you can see the move being done. Sniper letting it through without much of a stress, it looked like. Not too much of a fight or a hassle, and now you can see Souls going into P10, maybe carrying more points for the VCarb team than Max at the moment. Yeah, I had to think about that for a second. Yeah, he's carrying a lot more points than Max, because I don't think Max got points last race. But what you do see is the Mercedes battling it out for P12 somehow. Wow, you would think there would be team orders to have some teamwork going on here, but that looks more like they're battling for keeping the position. And there you can see the Ferrari, who might have gotten it all done wrong and losing the car and losing his left side wing with heavy damage. Of course, the battle's still going on for P12 though, with King Cobra on the older mediums and Lewis on the fresher softs. Of course, there's another situation though going on for TTV and the Ferrari, as the Ferrari now faces the fact that he might lose the position out to Marklax, and he does lose the position out to Marklax because of that wing damage, and he's unable to turn completely. And there, the move also getting done for Lewis right past his own teammate. Wow, that was a lot of battling going on for that place. It makes you wonder if they were cooperating together or if they were truly fighting each other, as now Hashbrown goes into the pits for a new wing and might find himself just completely out of this race. Out of the points, not what he wants. And what you don't want is another wreck which faces U6 almost hitting the barrier once again, forcing himself to rejoin the race, almost losing the time out to Max the Mesa now, who's finding himself bump drafting the Aston Martin on the straightaway with the spaces given. But now they're going 3 wide, and the Aston Martin, who does a wonderful dive, makes it so it's defensive against the V-carb of Max the Mesa, as now Hashbrown's on a new set of fresh rubber and a new wing, I believe. Now he's able to pull away if he doesn't have the pressure of U6 piling it on with any speed. Granted, Ferrari is not in the prime condition to have anything more than a P13 standing at the moment. The battle is only truly on for P13, with U6 staying behind in P14 and still managing to have the DRS slipstream. All involved, that could keep him into the group and keep him in it. With the ERS he has, he can also pull through. Although he's already out of that DRS zone, and that's not really going to help him. I think that's going to place him under a huge threat. And moreover, it's just not a place he wants to be, because now he has the driver of Max right behind, and the only other person that he could lose a position to if he makes any big mistakes. Golden Sniper, though, finding himself with a 3-second penalty that can open the window up to Lewis now. That's going to push Lewis on the fresher rubber, by the way, on those softs, to maybe try to inch ever so closer, and inching ever so closer is same with the Red Bull of Marklax on the back of TTV, which I believe they've got the strategy all wrong in the Red Bull family. And there you can see he almost gets the car all wrong through that corner, getting the tires a little touched up upon the grass, losing the grip, not what he wanted there. And there you can see it, the softs struggling a bit, and a few people as well struggling as well. Lewis getting a 3-second penalty, keeping Sniper in for the play on that 10th place. More than anything, Scronzi is showing himself as a true contender for Season 3 Driver Championship power. I mean, like, look at that. P1 qualifying. I think twice, right? No? Maybe the first race he was P2. I don't think Teddy got it, but Chad would have to remind me, but I can tell you this for a fact. Scronzi is murdering it. Scronzi in P1, back-to-back races, over Renato. Renato finds himself P2 with a penalty. Last race P3 with Teddy in P2. This is definitely going to be the confidence Scronzi wants going into this new season, looking to possibly gather a title under his name, maybe the Constructors. It's very possible with the dominant force of McLaren at the current moment. by the sounds of it. It seems like that issue involving the Red Bull of Meraki and the V-Carb would have been probably a decent issue that saw himself disconnecting and retiring. Unfortunate for Meraki, he had a wonderful showing for the first half of his race, but now for the second race he can't prove himself just as much as he wanted to. But what you do see is Stryker applying the pressure onto Mark Lax with that older rubber, as Mark is holding back the driver of the Williams Stryker on those hards. And Sniper, who finds himself retiring or possibly DNFing from the session, out now. That's going to see Skronzy having to deal with a car on the track. I don't think that was quite intended. That has to be the driver of that Kick Sauber losing out. And I don't know if that was done properly or not. But what you do see is the driver of Mark Lax losing it completely, possibly, as now Stryker gets through. 3-second penalty for Mark Lax. The grip, the confidence, is it there? What happened? I'd love to know, but what we do know is it's the line for this final lap with Skronzy leading it and Renato 6 seconds behind as Teddy tries to get under that 1 second as he is in the move for getting second place with the time penalty applied on Renato. But that's still going to be very, very pressure-wise for Renato, because he has to make sure he doesn't get anything more. If he does, maybe Drizzo might get in on the action. You can see 5 seconds go out, another 3 seconds, another mistake from Renato, and it's over. But what you do know is it's not over just because Renato gets the P3 with the time penalties been given during the race. U6 as well now getting a 3 seconds near the end of the race. Not what he wants. But what you do see is all the moves getting done, all the race action being done for Tier 1 preseason. For the first 2 races ever, Spain and Hungary. I hope you guys enjoyed it, because I certainly did. A lot of action, not only in Tier 2 with the 6 racers we had there, but with Tier 1 facing an 18 full grid, almost a full grid completely if there weren't for a few more issues. But what we happen to see right there is Hash Brown getting past Dunn on Lewis. And that will be the last move under the flags. Lewis swiggling the car around, all giddy. And there you can see in the background, U6 almost losing the car completely. That was Lewis running out of fuel, actually, by the end of that last sector. Not what he wished for, but still an amazing, amazing situation for all the racers on track, besides the ones that have DNF'd. I do want to say, proper sorry lads, but it's the art of racing. Situations go down, and more importantly, I'd like to figure out what happened with JDB of all people. Of course, this is the second win for Skronzy in the preseason. 2 more races going on next week. We'll be seeing some wonderful action going down. And honestly, this is a show-telling sign for what's to come in the real season. Beautiful momentum, beautiful power from the McLaren duo. You might see driver rumors and swaps go on, but I think these drivers are happy where they are in their current seats. Of course, I can't say for sure. But what I can say is next week, we will be racing in China and Mexico at 25%. And it's going to be a wonderful race. My hopes, anyways. But what you also see is the fastest lap going to Hash Brown. And these will be the results for the Hungarian GP. We saw absolutely terrible, terrible races going for 4 people here. Brownie, who never got off the grid, Inhumane Dan, who got into a wreck involved with corner 1, seeing him retire the car, Meraki, who had an issue of his own, and Golden Sniper, who we didn't get quite info on of why it happened, but he was having a wonderful race besides his unfortunate DNF. Of course, I hope everyone enjoyed the racing. I surely did. When I catch you guys next week, we're going to have a wonderful race to the end of preseason. This is Tier 1, Season 3, and I hope to see you guys next week.